Good morning and welcome to First Church Unitarian's Earth Day service. My name is Lara Semple and I serve on the Standing Committee of First Church Unitarian. First, I'd like to have Eric bring us in. So good to be here today, and the gallery photos were absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Reverend Lara, for that. I hope you all had a chance to look over your community matters. I want to bring your attention to some very important dates. You will note that on May 3rd, we will have our annual budget review. And then on May 17th is our annual meeting. Very, very, very important to all of these dates is that you receive the information that coincides with these meetings. So we want to make sure that you have signed up to be on the listserv. And if you look at your community matters, there is a link on right below the dates of these meetings so that you can sign up for the listserv. This way you will get all the pertinent information sent to you. I also want to let you know that we will have a virtual Share the Plate today. The proceeds from our virtual Share the Plate will support the good works of Project C.U.R.E, and you will hear more about that a little later. Also, I'd like to let you know that the deacons will be featuring an online program called This I Believe, and you can sign up for that. There is a link that was sent out on the listserv. So see, it's very important to be on that listserv. So I hope you enjoyed the service today, and I'm gonna have Eric ring us out.
You've asked me to tell you of the great turning, of how we saved the world from disaster. The answer is both simple and complex. We turned. For hundreds of years, we had turned away as life on earth grew more precarious. We turned away from the homeless men on the streets, the stench from the river, the children orphaned in Iraq, the mothers dying of AIDS in Africa. We turned away because that was what we had been taught. To turn away from our pain, from the hurt in another's eyes. Always, we were told, in actions louder than words, to turn away, turn away. And so we became a lonely people caught up in a world moving too quickly, too mindlessly toward its own demise, until it seemed as if there was no safe space to turn. No place, inside or out, that did not remind us of fear or terror, despair and loss, anger and grief. Yet on one of those days, someone did turn, turned to face the pain, turned to face the stranger, turned to look at the smoldering world and the hatred seething in too many eyes. Turn to face himself, herself. And then another turned, and another, and another. As they wept, they took each other's hands until whole groups of people were turning. As the people turned, they began to spin, reweaving the web of life, mending the shocking tears, knitting it back together with the colors of the earth, sewing on tiny mirrors, so the beauty of each person, each creature, each plant, each life might be seen and respected. And as the people turned, as they spun like the earth through the universe, the web wrapped around them like a soft baby blanket, making it clear all were loved, nothing separate. And so the world was saved, but only as long as you too, sweet one, remember to turn. The words of Christine Fry. Let us worship. This is the time to light our chalice. If you have a chalice at home, I invite you to join me in lighting a chalice or a candle. And hey, pretty cool. There's our beloved chalice and our beloved sanctuary. Very cool. Thank you for that, Mike. Our beloved chalice and our own beloved sanctuary. So let's see. If you know the words to our covenant, you can save them with me now. Love is the spirit of this church and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Okay, welcome. Welcome. I believe this is our 7th online, live-only worship service, although I'm starting to lose track. My name is Lara Hoke, and I am so lucky and happy to be the minister of this awesome congregation. And I'm so glad that you joined us this morning. A couple things. I just want to thank Molly for that beautiful prelude, but also for the beautiful gathering music. It's so nice to have original music for those videos. I want to thank Mike Pillman for all of his electronic help. We wouldn't be able to do this in the same way without him. I want to thank Laura Semple for doing our Community Matters this week. And thank you to our guest, Roy Miller, for being here. I look forward to hearing him later. And remember that the email I sent out that had the link for this service, that listserv email, also has lower the link to the Zoom that happens after the service for joys and concerns and sharing. So don't miss that. So this is our service in honor of Earth Day, which was officially last week on April 22nd, the 50th Earth Day. But without further ado, I want to hand it over to our wonderful Director of Religious Education, Vicki, for Time for All Ages.
Hi. I have a special reading, story, poem, whatever you like to call it today for Earth Day. And with Mike Pillman's great help, we will have a little photo show to accompany it. See if you can see why I chose the photos to go with the words. This is from We Love You, Mother Earth, a book, a quite beautiful book by Nancy Lewin and Karen Wendell. So,
Give me 2 seconds, Vicki.
okay. I hope everybody's good. I want to thank everybody for the lovely cards I've been getting. Here we go. All right. Here is a picture of our Earth. The Earth is our mother. Sunlight warms her body and her heart beats from deep within her core. The ground is her skin, and the mountains are her bones, and the listening rocks are her ears. Water is her blood, and all that swims are her dreams. The air is her breath, and birds are her song. Trees and plants are her living hair. Animals are her hands and feet. Frogs and snakes are her sense of smell and taste. Insects are her busy thoughts. We, you and I and all of us humans here on earth, we are her eyes and her feelings. And all are her children. She gives us all she is. We take what we need. What can we give back to our mother? Make her a blanket of leaves and grass and flowers to cover her skin. Keep her blood clean and her dreams untroubled. Fill the streams with swift young fish. Keep the air fresh and feed her songs. Plant living hair. Shelter her animals, her hands and her feet. Give her good things to smell and taste, and good thoughts to think. Watch to keep her safe. Send her your love and good feelings. This is the gift we give to our mother, the earth, to use her gifts well and give back what we can. We love you, Mother Earth. And that's the story, and that's the pictures. And if you didn't get to look at them long enough, you can see them on YouTube after the service is moved, after we're done, and you can go on FCU's link. All right, I see we have the Tatum Hammer family here to share. Hi.
Good morning.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Yeah. What's up?
Nothing much.
What are you eating there?
He's eating pancakes.
Looks good. You have stuff to share?
Riley and Liza do. I don't.
Okay, go ahead.
What did the marlin say to the swordfish? You're looking sharp.
Right. Right. They both have like pointy things on their face, huh? I don't know what they're called. Not noses.
No.
No, I don't know what.
What is it? What kind of gum does that? You don't want to do it? Okay.
No,
What?
okay. You're too busy eating your pancakes, right?
I guess I'll do one.
Okay.
What kind of gum does a bumblebee chew?
What kind of gum? I don't know. Honey gum?
Bumble gum.
Of course. What else? And how are you guys doing
Good.
now that we've had our jokes for the week?
Yeah.
What? You doing good? Hanging in there?
I hurt my wrist.
How'd you do that?
I was just sitting up like this on my hands on a bar, and it cracked.
Oh, no. I hope it's better.
Me too.
Good.
Thanks. Liza, do you have anything?
Have anything you want to share? I wish you could share those pancakes with me. I'm hungry.
We got extra.
Well, send them over.
Okay. I'll tell
Right.
a joke, okay?
Okay, one more.
Why do fish live in salt water?
Why do what live in salt water?
Fish.
I know, they wouldn't taste very good otherwise. Why?
Does pepper water makes them sneeze?
Very good. All right, I don't see anyone else coming on. So we'll say bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right. Thank you, Vicki. And thank you, Maddie, Riley, and Eliza. Always great to hear those jokes. And thank you, Vicki, for that wonderful time for all ages. Now is the time for our virtual Share the Plate. And it's my pleasure to introduce the volunteer who will speak to us about this wonderful organization. His name is Roy Miller, and he does work with Project C.U.R.E. So I will hand it right over to Roy. Welcome, Roy.
Well, thank you very much. Share. There we go. Yeah, so my name is Roy Miller. I'm coming to you from Stowe, Massachusetts, right down the street. And this morning, I'm gonna share some of my experiences about Project C.U.R.E. And it's one of my favorite stories. I'm so proud of the work that I did with this organization. Now, if you could see it, you'd see that Project C.U.R.E. has a very large warehouse in Denver, Colorado, and that's their headquarters. But they also have sites in Arizona, Houston, and a few other places. The thing that's beautiful about it, these warehouses are filled with medical supplies that are donated, and many of them are brand new things like from the manufacturers, things that are outdated. Many of them are refurbished equipment, hospital beds, et cetera, you'd see. And there's very few employees. These are mostly volunteers that come in and work in the warehouses, people like church groups and companies send in a team for a full day to work in the warehouses. Very well organized. Now, what they do in Project C.U.R.E. is fill containers, ocean-going containers with these supplies and ship them to third world countries. And last year, there was a total of 142 containers shipped. That's 3 to 5 a week. And they're going to 42 different countries last year. The value of the containers is about $500,000, about $500,000. And because they're donated, the cost to get these to countries averages about $10,000. And they either get some of that money from local governments, again, church groups and companies will sponsor a container, and also from help, donations from viewers like you, as they say. So I've done 3 trips, and you'd see me here in an airplane going into the Sahara Desert. And it's a little oasis as you fly in, you see green, and that all surrounds a hospital. And this hospital, even though it looks sparsely populated, the hospital does about 100,000 cases a year out in the Sahara Desert in Niger. And so they had some nice photos of the hospital, how the supplies are very much needed. And the waiting room is just packed, and there are people outside in lines waiting to get in. I then went to some other sites, more rural. One of them in particular, they do women that suffer from birthing defects, fistulas. They repair these women, and they only take maybe 10 people a week that they can do. So here you have a great contrast in the services. And when I was there, a team from New York City, Dr. Aerosmith, comes in and he helps train local people to do this work so they can add to the 10 a week and make it 20 in their space available. I also did some trips up into Ethiopia. I did 2 trips into Ethiopia. And again, in the Rift Valley, the conditions, they have very, very small clinics for local people, and again, very crowded. And they might have maybe one doctor and 2 or 3 nurses, and that's the entire staff in the facilities. So they're very small, very much in need of good equipment and so forth. Many times in these areas, they'll be building a new hospital, and Project C.U.R.E will supply beds and oxygen generators and things like that. Simple things that in a hospital here are a commonplace, like oxygen. They need to either bring in big bottles and a long distance, or have generators on site. So Project C.U.R.E, we've done a number of them. So I've just recently learned that Project C.U.R.E is now shipping some containers in the United States. For example, things like gloves and masks and bandages and things like that. And they have stacks and stacks of these that they're trying to get out to some sites in the United States. So on behalf of Project C.U.R.E, I'll try to get my slides working by the coffee hour. And on behalf of Project C.U.R.E, we thank you very, very much for your support for this work. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks so much, Roy. Really appreciate you spending this time letting us know a bit about Project C.U.R.E. My understanding is that people can go to the website, which I believe is projectcure.org, O-R-G, and make a donation right there. And if you wish, in the memo line, you can say that it was from this service, First Church Unitarian in Littleton. So this morning's offering for the good works of Project C.U.R.E will now be given and received in grateful appreciation. to start off with a bonus greeting from yesterday, Saturday, April 25th, 2020, and a beautiful sunny day it was. Happy sunny day. When people think of Lowell, Massachusetts, the closest city to Littleton and the city where I live, they think of the Merrimack River, but I actually live closer to the Concord River, which you can see behind me. And it certainly is beautiful today. I want to thank again Wendy McDougall for making this mask, and for all of the people from our church who made masks. Chris Ursland, and who else? Susan Tordella Williams. I know there were others, but thank you all. She's so generous of you. And I'm so happy to have it so I can walk on this one sunny, lovely day. This is the condo where I live in Lowell, Bagshaw Mills. And I want to show you around back. So this is the back of our building, and we write on a very interesting, active part of the Concord River right here. And so that's where I live in Lowell. Thank you for indulging me, and now back to our regularly scheduled homily, which is coming to you from Bagshaw Mills, actually. Welcome to Earth Day 2020, my presentation and homily. It's a presentation because, of course, there are visuals to look at as I speak. Earth Day is 50 years old. The very first Earth Day was back in 1970. And here's a picture from that first Earth Day, a march happening for Earth Day in New York City. Picture from the Columbia University Earth Institute website. Of course, 50 years later, here we are in a very strange Earth Day because of the coronavirus pandemic, COVID-19, the novel coronavirus. And 50 years ago from that first Earth Day, I'm thinking not many people would have dreamed of the things we're going through this Earth Day. They just wouldn't have imagined it, I don't believe. And here you see another picture of an Earth Day gathering in New York City, a rally in New York City for Earth Day. What might surprise you about this picture of the Earth Day rally in New York is that it also is from that first Earth Day, 1970. Yes, they are wearing masks 50 years ago, but they were wearing them to draw attention to the horrible air pollution in New York, worse than now. This picture shows in current Earth Day 2020, we are again wearing masks, but for a different reason. This time we're wearing masks not for air pollution per se, but to protect ourselves and each other from the virus. And this is a picture of folks waiting in the airport to go to Beijing. There is some good news. The pandemic is horrible and nobody would wish for this. It's a horrible thing. But there is some good news relative to the Earth based on the huge changes that we are making while we shelter in place, whether by choice or because it's required. Air pollution is decreased. We see this everywhere. Greenhouse gas emissions are decreased. It's a wonderful thing. And things that impact our health that we don't think about maybe as much. Noise pollution and light pollution, those are down too. And that's good for our mental health, if not other parts of our health. And canals are visibly clearer, the sky visibly clearer, and so on. So there's some good news since we've started sheltering in place in terms of good news for the environment. So, for instance, here's a picture of the Los Angeles skyline, not always known for being nice and clear, right? Smog is what we think of when we think of LA, but there it is looking lovely. And this is a picture of part of Tibet, and you see the Himalayas in the background. And, you know, the skies are just looking quite clear and crisp since we have been flying less and driving less and the rest of it. And here in Venice, the canals are looking incredibly clear. They certainly didn't look this clear when I visited Venice back in the early 90s when I was in the Navy. So that's nice to see. You also see satellite images of major metropolitan areas. This is New York City. And you'll see that specifically the emissions from driving are way down. And this satellite image shows specifically the nitrogen dioxide being way down in all these major metropolitan areas all over the world. And that's good to see. So there is some encouraging news for the Earth based on the extreme measures we're taking to protect ourselves and each other from the horrible COVID-19 coronavirus. But it's a little bit more complicated than that. For instance, canals are visibly clearer in Venice, but they're not necessarily cleaner. The sediment isn't being stirred up as much. The gondolas aren't going. You have plastic bag use is way up. Other single-use plastics, like for hand sanitizer and soap, are way up because of the virus. You'll also see, because we're doing so much online shopping, there's more packaging being used for those shipments. And of course, there's transportation associated with shipping, so things get complicated. There's a rise in medical waste, not surprisingly, since you have to throw out pretty much everything that's associated with the virus. And you might not think of this, but climate science itself is disrupted. Climate science conferences are being canceled or postponed indefinitely, and climate scientists aren't able to do their work quite as well. Lots of work doesn't happen quite the same from home, as many of us discovering. The big question, the big unknown is, will the changes we're making as we shelter in place be lasting? Will we keep doing these changes? Will we treat the climate change crisis like the existential threat that it is? The coronavirus is an existential threat, but so is climate change. Will we continue the good habits we've gotten into, like walking more while we drive less? Will we do that? Will we stop flying as much when we're told that we can drive and fly again? Will we reduce, reuse, and recycle? Will we consume less when this is all over? Will we find ways to recycle again and use less single-use plastic? Will the governments across the world make the huge coordinated changes that are necessary to fight climate change? Will they act boldly? Will they require corporations to make the major changes they need to fight pollution and climate change? Individuals can't do it alone. Now, some members of the scientific community have been sounding the alarm literally for decades, warning that it was not a matter of if, but rather a matter of when another pandemic would threaten humanity. This is reported on the CBS News website on an article for coronavirus and the environment and so on. You might wonder, why? Why were these scientists so sure that we would have another pandemic? It has a lot to do with how we interact with the earth and its wildlife. You might have heard that the coronavirus, COVID-19, started in Wuhan, possibly from a bat. And that is a possibility. Professor Kate Jones of University College London told CBS News, explaining, we're encroaching into systems that we've never been in before. She says most wildlife diseases just stay in wildlife, but sometimes they can mutate in a way that can jump those species barriers. She says we're changing landscapes and encroaching into systems at a scale that we have never done before. Professor Peter Daszak of Columbia University told CBS News something similar. He said, we disrupt their, meaning wildlife, we disrupt their ecosystems, hunt them, build houses next to them, grow livestock right next to their populations. We allow the viruses they carry that we've never been exposed to in our history to emerge into our own populations. Our analysis shows that land use change, the conversion of tropical forest into agricultural land and livestock farms, is associated with around 30% of known emerging diseases. So how we interact with wildlife makes a huge difference for both viruses and pandemics and the environment. And so, what now? What do we do with this realization that things have temporarily gotten better, but that it can't last unless we do something? Well, the obvious thing is we have to vote. We have some important elections coming up very soon. And our fifth Unitarian Universalist principle says that we affirm and promote the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. So it will be very important to get out there and put democracy to work and get the best possible leaders that can help us with this global climate crisis, to treat it like the existential crisis that it is, and to help us prevent pandemics and to respond better when we have them. As Unitarian Universalists, we also have a seventh principle, which you probably know because you've heard me say it before. I think of it every Earth Day. The seventh principle is that we affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of existence, of all existence, of which we are a part. And that's the core. Everything is connected. A couple of years ago, I went to a Unitarian Universalist General Assembly, our annual business meeting. And one of the workshops I attended was by David Korten, who's probably best known for writing The Great Turning, but he had just written this book, Change the Story, Change the Future. And he talks about the importance of framing stories for societies. Korten believes that our society is failing, and that the short answer as to why it's failing is the corporation, specifically the transnational global corporation. He's talking about those few hundred very large transnational global corporations that really aren't local anywhere, he says, not accountable to any local group. The trouble is that they are running things. And Korten thinks that our framing story in this society is the distant patriarch story of the distant God that's prominent in sort of Western world religions. It allows for patriarchal ways to dominate and helps to back the failing system, this kind of worldview. At the workshop, Korten talked about an expression that I'm sure you've all heard many times, that time is what? Time is, you know the expression. The expression is time is money. That's the expression in our society. Isn't that really telling? Time is money. Well, he talked about a country, Bhutan, little country, that has a gross national happiness commission, right? And they try to measure the gross national happiness. And he heard words from the secretary of the Gross National Happiness Commission that changed his worldview. And what Korten heard the commissioner say were the words, very simple but profound, words that changed his worldview forever, simply that time is life. Not time is money, time is life. Think about what a profoundly different way that is to view the world. Think of it. Here you are, spending time. You're spending your time that you'll never get back. Time is life. It's more precious than anything. Yet in our culture, we're stuck on money. Korten calls this our sacred money and markets story. And that's what we tell ourselves. And it goes like this. In our culture, we say that time is money, money is wealth, material consumption is the path to happiness. Making money creates wealth, drives consumption to increase happiness, and is the defining purpose of individuals, business, and the economy. Economic inequality and environmental damage are a regrettable but necessary and unavoidable cost of growing the GDP. GDP growth, in turn, eliminates poverty, drives technological innovation to free us from our dependence on nature, and brings universal and perpetual prosperity for all. Wow, that is the sacred money and markets story. Does it make a lot of sense? And I have to ask, how's that sacred money and market story working out for you? How's it working out for us? How is it worshiping the Wall Street bull as our own sacred golden calf? Instead, Quarton wants us to have what he calls the sacred life and living earth story that goes like this. We humans are living beings born and nurtured by a living earth. Real wealth is living wealth. Time is life. Life exists only in community. The prime task of any living community is to maintain the conditions essential to the life of its members. We all do best when we all do well in a world that works for all. Environmental damage and extreme inequality are indicators of serious system failure. Human institutions are human creations. That which humans create, humans can change, Quarton says. And so he says, it's becoming abundantly clear that the only valid purpose of an economy is to serve life. He says, money is servant, life is master. That's the heart of it. This realization of Quarton's that the living universe did not birth Earth to serve us. Rather, he says, the living Earth birthed us to serve its continued evolutionary unfolding. The living universe did not birth Earth to serve us, he says. Rather, living Earth birthed us to serve its continued evolutionary unfolding. And so that's it. In the words that we heard as our call to worship this morning, words of Christine Fry, we turned. And as the people turned, as they spun like the earth through the universe, the web trapped around them like a soft baby blanket, making it clear all were loved, nothing separate. And so the world was saved, but only as long as you too, sweet one, remember to turn. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. It is time for our benediction. So again, as is the tradition at First Church Unitarian in Littleton, we usually get in a circle and hold hands. I'm missing that. I'm sure many of you are missing it as well. But I invite you, if there's somebody there with you where you can safely hold their hands, I invite you to hold hands. If not, if you're alone in the room, I invite you to hold your hands together to feel that warmth as we have our benediction. Friends, we are a part of the living earth. What humans have made, humans can indeed change. We know that we can make a world that works for a lot more people than the world is working for now. We know that another world is possible. We've seen what is possible, the great change that can happen when everyone works together. May we and wise leaders take us to a world where we can avoid environmental outcomes that are devastating, in a world where we can avoid pandemics, in a world where we live in harmony with the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. We can do this. We just have to have the will, and we can make the way. May it be so. Go in peace. Enjoy the postlude, and I will see you afterwards on Zoom. Bye.
you.